Hello again. I want to move back now to the case, and as I've explained, the this is a process where you have a reverse engineered process where, in our case, children were taken, um, the manner of which, particularly pertaining to a younger daughter, was done illegally. Um, and when they're taken, imagine a reverse engineered process where you look and say, there's two children here. This is X number of cash flows combined in terms of numbers of years, and then a case is built from there, in essence. So you know what you want to achieve, and in essence, you build to achieve that objective. So this is not something that's new. We see it all the time. If you go back to Tony Blair and the war in Iraq, you know, he knew very well that he wanted to invade Iraq and wreak havoc there. Then you had all this nonsense about weapons of mass destruction and so on and so forth. Anything that didn't fit the narrative was dismissed, and a phony case was built to go to war with Iraq. Seen it on many occasions. Other false narratives that pushed out. Dawn Sturgis inquiry. I've done a video on that. Another scenario would be my own case when, you know, going through this process and showing how it leads into the financial system, and then also via the wealth tech whistleblowing, showing how the conflict of interest between the regulators, a prosecutor and a regulator, leads to bad outcomes for the victims of financial scandals, has led me to be a recipient of police state terror. And I've shown you part the justification for that was some mendacious allegation that I spray painted somebody, Judge Hudson's car, on two occasions, and then to be um, put to me in an interview that the reason I did it is because I reacted poorly to an email that was sent after the alleged incident. So, we do live in this world that we just create reality from narrative, and this process is the embodiment of that, and it culminates in this what they call achieving best evidence, which was an unsigned statement that the person who allegedly the statement represents, our older daughter, claims to have never seen it. It's unsigned. Nothing in there was investigated. It was just narrative built to support that reverse engineered conclusion. It is very important because when we start thinking about trial by jury being rolled back, these are the dangers you'll face because people will be convicted on narrative, not fact. And this is an extreme example of that. And we found many other examples of this, not just relating to Rachel Hudson, but right the way across the country. We believe that this issue with children being effectively manufactured into financial assets and traded with private equity owned fostering agencies and adoptions, another process we'll look at later on, um, it is leading to these horrendous outcomes where children are taken from their families, their emotional attachment is destroyed from their families because they want to manufacture them to an asset and push them on and lock them into long-term cash flows for the benefit of private equity. And I've done videos giving a basic model for that. So this achieving best evidence, I'll do a few videos. I'll try and break them down into manageable sizes to show how evidence was falsified and just a story created just to fit an objective. It's a perfect venue for that. Behind closed doors, in the family court, in these instances, you're assumed to be guilty. You don't start as innocent until proven guilty. It's the other way around. Behind closed doors, judges who are not subject to any what you'd recognise as accountability. This case, Rachel Hudson, a whole lineage in the industry, so she's embedded into this ecosystem. And we'll do more videos on the ecosystem and how people earn, how court officials and local authority staff earn money from the ecosystem as well. But that's for a later date. Um, and in essence, there is no threshold. Yeah, that's why they didn't want a police investigation when I called them out on that. That's why they didn't bring in um, expert opinion from the broken arm, which I'll cover on different, which got spun from an accident into a you know an act that I committed. Um, that's why it's done this way, because nothing needs to be proven. You just write a story. And this is where so many Britain's problems are these days. Is you have so much authority that's been taken away from elected officials and put into these in the hands of unelected judges and unelected regulators and authorities and so on and so forth. And that is why we're getting these horrendous outcomes. Um, and in many ways, you can see why there's frustration and people are listening to what I described as the Starkey thesis, or other people described as the Starkey thesis, and saying this whole nasty system needs to be dismantled. And it's why you have a problem with immigration as well. Again, just cases fictionized, put in front of a judge, and the judge ticks it off. The judge will have the same lineage in industry as well. That is why you're getting an extreme distortion of the human rights legislation, which other countries seem to manage okay with, except those who started to copy the British legal professionals and how they distort it now. And it just gets way through, and there's no accountability, and there's nothing seemingly people can do about it. So let's refer to this. I'll go to this fictionalized statement now. Again, you will see why it's not been signed, and there are other documents that I'll come to and show how they were falsified as well. So what they started off trying to do is they tried to raise issues that happened in the earlier part of older daughter's life relating to other schools. Now, we did have a lot of problems with her. I don't want to be malicious on that. The problems mainly related to she was very, very difficult to get up in the morning, no matter how well things were laid out. I was often not even there. I'd get up and I'd go else to work and wasn't around, particularly in the early part of her life, to see this. But everything was laid out. She had breakfast ready. There was always issues with getting her up. Her younger daughter, when you know, it was completely different in that. Sometimes she'd get up, so I don't want to get up like any adult, but she would get up and she would do what she had to do, and there was never really any problems. But with older daughter, there was always problems. There were other issues where she seemingly had an interest in playing people off against each other. It was very odd. She was, the term told off for something, which was never initially. It came after several polite requests. She would then go off and spin that in a very malicious way to other people. And there were issues with this with other with previous schools, and I can remember they tried to say here that I received a call when she was in reception about an incident that happened one morning. It wasn't when she was in reception; it was later date, several years after that actually, which shows how poor this statement was. Hence why it wasn't signed. And Rachel Hudson knew very well that this was a creation. I challenged it throughout, and she accepted it unsigned and she knew it was a falsified document essentially. Um, so what actually happened? I had a call once, and it wasn't reception. 7 years later, there'd been some, I don't know, argument or something with the mother in the morning. And the teacher had asked, and I said, "Well, I wasn't there. Please allow me to check up, and I'll report back to you," which I did. And when I called my wife, she had a different version of events. I went home and I spoke to daughter. She said, "Oh, it was nothing. I just didn't really get up." And there was lots of incidents like this. But what I mean is they put something in the statement trying to dig up dirt about incidents at earlier schools, but they didn't go to any of those schools and ask for statements. None of this. That was an obvious thing to do, isn't it? If you said, well, there are instances, two other schools, why not go to those schools and asked them to make statements. They didn't, because I'm pretty sure that those schools knew there were issues that we raised about older daughter that they observed too. But it doesn't matter, because it's about creating a narrative which is used to present as reality, and it's signed off to meet a reverse engineered conclusion, which involves children being emotionally sterilized, cut off from their families, emotionally harmed, turned into long-term cash generative assets, which is the process. So this is the first video relating to this falsified achieving best evidence, and I will continue with further videos in due course. Take care, bye.